All right, so it's 4 p.m. here in Finland and 2 p.m. in the UK and somewhere in between wherever you are at. But greetings from Jyväskylä, Finland, and welcome to today's Firstbeat webinar called It's All About Sleep with Dr. Nerina Ramlakhan. It's really cool to see so many people online and I'm excited about today's sessions. Maybe even a little bit nervous because I actually had a dream last night where I had fallen asleep on my computer and the webinar had started and you guys were waiting while I was sleeping on my computer. So I can assure you I'm wide awake right now. Sleep is a key wellness topic that we all need to pay attention to improve our resistance and resilience, especially during these exceptionally challenging times that we are experiencing right now. My name is Tiina Hoffman. I'm an exercise physiologist and master trainer at Firstbeat, and our guest speaker, Nerina Ramlakhan, is joining me from London today. Here is our agenda today. So a quick introduction on Dr. Nerina Ramlakhan after this, and then her section on sleep after that, the main presentation. And after her part, we are going to do a little bit of a back and forth discussion on some of the key questions, and also we'll share some insights from both her and mine data to just kind of as a background for the topic. And then in the end, we'll have some time for a little bit of Q&A. But now I'm happy to introduce Dr. Nerina Ramlakhan. She's a physiologist and sleep expert with over 25 years of experience in the field. She spent 10 years conducting sleep programs at the Nightingale Hospital in London, is a burnout prevention specialist at the Ashridge Business School, and original founder of Bupa's Corporate Wellbeing Solutions. Nerina has written several books on the topic of sleep, and her work has also been featured in numerous magazines and newspapers, as well as TV and radio programs. Nerina combines her professional experience with academic and personal insights and believes that sleep problems are not just all about sleep, but about how we deal with life in general. I met Nerina online a few months ago when we discussed her Firstbeat result, and we discovered firstly that we both have and are experiencing some sleep problems occasionally, but also we seem to be sort of kindred spirits, which is what this picture is a little bit about. We both enjoy taking a cold water bath or a dip to energize ourselves, but also to boost recovery. This is me dipping in a hole in the ice, which is something that we here in Finland can do because our winter months are long and harsh and all the lakes freeze, and so that is something that we do to energize ourselves. And on the right-hand side, you can see Nerina taking a cold water dip in the river that's close to her house, and we both use it as one tool to energize ourselves, and she might talk a little bit more about that. But it was nice to discover that we have something like this in common. So Nerina, it's really great to have you here. Welcome, and now the stage is yours, and you can share your slides from this.
Absolutely. I wonder how everyone slept last night. How did you sleep, Tiina?
Well, I had that one dream where it didn't go too well because I missed the start of the webinar. So that wasn't very good. And I'm not usually all that nervous about this, but somehow this must have been in my head. I think it has to do with the technology more than anything else.
Yes, so I've got 20 minutes now. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. 20 minutes to share with you everything I know about sleep and have learned in the last 25 years. Oops, okay, that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but it's a pleasure to be here, Tiina. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm passionate about helping people to sleep. You know, the last thing on my biography slide was once insomniac, and it wasn't about having occasional problems with sleep. I was a severe insomniac. So from a baby, months old, my mother was taking me from one doctor to the next because I couldn't sleep. And when I got to my 30s, I got extremely ill, and I ended up in hospital for a month. And it was as a result of getting so ill that I started to heal my relationship with sleep. And so even though, you know, I've studied sleep from a Western medicine perspective, Eastern medicine as well, a lot of my work comes, you know, not just from my academic or professional experience, it's really personal because I know what it feels like to not sleep well. So actually, I really feel tempted. I know that we can all use the chat function. I'm so tempted to ask everybody how they slept last night. You know, if you had to put one word into the chat function to describe how you slept last night, could you share with us how you slept? So I know that I got into bed, I was really tired, you know, very tired, but my brain suddenly started going at 100 miles an hour. And then I fell asleep and I slept really well after that. Okay, so very well, very good today. Wonderful. My goodness, I'm wondering why everybody has turned up to this session. We've got some really good sleepers here. That's good. Very good. Actually, you know what I should have asked? I should have asked you, how are you feeling today, energy-wise? Because sometimes we also think, okay, so we've got a few saying a bit disjointed, a bit restless, like a baby, broken, good start, then awoken, disturbed. Okay, so all the people who slept well came in on the first rush of responses there, and then we got people saying, oh, not so good. I mean, what is a good night's sleep? And now we've got rubbish and awful now, okay? So I'm glad you're on this call today. What is a good night's sleep? Well, in Hindi, we've still got responses coming in. In Hindi, there's a word called sattvic. Sattvic means pure. And when I'm trying to help my clients or my patients, or with the writing that I do, what I'm trying to do is to help people to get sattvic sleep. Sattvic, clean. Gwyneth Paltrow, the actress, called it clean sleep. So the kind of sleep where we wake up in the morning feeling refreshed, restored, inspired, looking forward to the day ahead. So it's not just about getting any old kind of sleep or just getting so many hours of sleep, because a lot of people are fixated on hours of sleep, but it's about getting good deep sleep, the right amount of REM sleep, the right amount of dreaming, but the right amount of restoration, which is why it's so important, I think, to measure our sleep. It's such a helpful thing to do, and we'll talk about my data later, and we'll find out whether I was disappointed or encouraged and reassured by what my data showed. So we want to be, at the moment, particularly with everything going on in the world, we want to be sleeping well. But I have watched, as a sleep expert, I have, oh gosh, somebody's saying, I don't remember ever waking up like that. Okay, so keep listening. But, you know, even though the human body is made up of 70 odd trillion cells, every cell contains the DNA that should enable us to sleep beautifully and to get that amazing sleep for our survival. But in the last 25 years, I have noticed that the demand for my work has been ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And why? Because our world is going too fast. There's so much demand. There's so much, the impact of speed, technology, noise, and of course, now the pandemic, create worry, anxiety, uncertainty. So it impacts on our ability to sleep. So I have become extremely busy because of the impact of life on our nervous system. So many people are not sleeping well because they're living in the wrong part of their nervous system. They're living from the wrong part of their nervous system. Now, what do I mean by that? I know that Tiina is a physiologist. I'm also a physiologist. I'm not a medical doctor. My PhD is neurophysiology. Let me just tell you a little bit about the physiology behind this. And what do I mean when I say in order to sleep well, we need to be living in the right part of our nervous system. What do I mean by that? To simplify this, the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, divided into two branches: sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, survival, adrenaline, cortisol, fear, anxiety, worry. You know, and in London, when we went into the first lockdown last March, a year ago, everybody was running around in fear and in survival mode. Everybody was buying all the toilet paper and all the rice and the pasta. You couldn't get toilet paper to buy anywhere. You know, I remember going to a shop and spending a huge amount of money to get some toilet paper. So everybody was running in survival mode because they were afraid. That's the sympathetic nervous system. That doesn't help us to sleep because it's trying to help us to survive. Then we have the other part of the nervous system, which is the parasympathetic, which is rest, repair, recovery, digestion, immune function. We all need that at the moment. Sexual function, sleep, rest, restoration, rejuvenation, parasympathetic. Now, the reason why the sleep industry globally is worth billions of pounds and dollars is because so many people are running around in the wrong part of their nervous system. They're in survival mode in the sympathetic nervous system as opposed to thriving. And so the reason I've teamed up with Firstbeat is because I love the philosophy of it. I love that what we're trying to do is to help people to really empower people to understand what's happening in their nervous system. You know, am I surviving? Am I thriving? I'm doing all this stuff in my life, but what impact is it having in my body? And when we know what's happening in our body, we can make the right choices, because if we find out that we're running around in survival mode, we can change things so that we start to thrive. And what does that mean? Well, it means from the minute we wake up making the right choices. And I would love today to share with you some of those choices and in the conversation that we have. But if we don't make the right choices, we'll end up with the typical sleep problems. At the moment, the most common sleep problems are difficulty getting to sleep, sleep initiation, difficulty staying asleep, sleep maintenance, waking between 2 and 4, can't get back to sleep. A lot of people are experiencing that. And then we have non-refreshing sleep, waking up feeling like you just haven't slept at all, like you've been thinking all night, like you've been in the office. Oversleeping. A lot of people are oversleeping at the moment as well. Going to bed too late, waking up too late, shifting their sleep phase, and then waking up with sleep inertia, feeling tired. And then we have the parasomnias, which are things like grinding teeth, restless legs, sleepwalking, sleep talking. So, you know, when we come to the Q&A, ask questions about this. If anyone wants any answers on this. Just one thing that I want to say, actually a couple of things. The paradoxical insomnia is, and I have to mention that on this call because it's so relevant actually. The paradoxical insomnia or orthosomnia is poor sleep that is being had as a result of your devices inaccurately telling you that you're waking up or you're not getting the right sleep, and so it creates more anxiety. And if you're a perfectionist, then you become so fixated on the data telling you the wrong thing. Now, I'm not saying this about Firstbeat. I'm saying, look, I have one of my favorite devices on my wrist. I have 2 Fitbits. And I love it. I love knowing that today I've done 10,858 steps already. I walked my dog, right? So I've achieved my step quota. But I don't use this to measure my sleep with respect to Fitbit because I love the device. But because it tells us that we're waking up, it tells us stuff, and it doesn't always give us accurate information. It doesn't tell you actually that some waking up during the night is normal. It's actually normal to wake between 2 and 4. What is not normal is to stay awake, worrying and fretting, and then doing our emails or looking at our social media or going onto the dating site or, you know, looking at the share prices. So a lot of people sabotage their sleep with the unhelpful choice, which is this. Oh, and now I can see I've gotten 2 notifications and I'm distracted. I don't want to sleep anymore, although I'm not supposed to be sleeping right now. But a lot of our lifestyle choices are impacting on our ability to sleep well, because what it does is it impacts on the nervous system where we don't feel safe. We sleep when we feel safe. That we sleep when we're living in the right part of the nervous system. When we make the choices that enable us to feel an inner sense of safety, then we sleep well. And then we're going to be talking about those choices, particularly hopefully when we get to my data as well. So fundamentally, sleeping well is about making the right choices, because sleep problems are not caused when you put your head on the pillow. From the minute you wake up, every choice that you make throughout the day lands in the nervous system, as the data shows, and it then impacts on how you are able to sleep at night. So fundamentally, sleeping well is about living well. You know, living well is about loving well. And when we love well, we sleep well. So, you know, when we wake up in the morning, and I can see that we have a little bit more time, Tiina. So I maybe I can give a little insight into my toolkit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. So what are the choices that we should be making? Well, I mean, I don't have the time to share my entire toolkit with you, but there are 5 things that I do when I start working with people, and I'm renowned for calling them my 5 non-negotiables. Okay, so the 5 things that will help to recalibrate your nervous system from survival into thriving, the parasympathetic nervous system. 5 things based on my experience of working with millions of people, including psychiatry, elite athletes, and all these years of experience of working with people, as well as working on my own sleep. So, number one, if you want to get better sleep, if you wake up in the morning feeling anxious, worried, already you're in your inbox, looking at your emails, looking at the day ahead, eat breakfast within 30 to 45 minutes of rising if you wake up with anxiety. That's the first thing. Now, store that in your memory. If you want to ask more questions about it, do it in the Q&A. But ideally, don't fast. Don't skip breakfast. Secondly, don't use caffeine as a substitute for food. Cut back on your caffeine intake, particularly if you're dealing with a lot of stress, you're really anxious, you're not sleeping well. Don't have more than 2 cups of tea or coffee a day. Ideally, no caffeine after 3 in the afternoon. Drink more water. Hydrate the body, hydrate the brain. Ideally, build up your water intake so you're drinking at least 2 liters of water a day, non-caffeinated, and that doesn't include alcohol. Number 4, get to bed earlier, 3 or 4 nights a week. And I call this rest entrainment, intentional rest. Prepare your body. Get your body used to being in bed, resting around 9:30, 10 in the evening. You don't have to be asleep. You could be reading a book. Do you remember books? Old-fashioned books. So, and this brings me to my 5th non-negotiable, which is get these devices out the bedroom. Get an old-fashioned clock. You can get these things to buy. They still make them. Now, I've got one that looks like that. I'm not on commission to this company. But what I love about this is I can travel with it if I close it like that. Do you remember the days when we used to travel? I can travel with it. Also, to see the time during the night, I have to press it and then you see the time illuminated, okay? But so when I wake up during the night, I don't look at the time. That's the biggest disruption to not being able to sleep. Now, these 5 things, okay, we're all at different times. Some of you need to go to bed soon as well. But these 5 things, when my clients, my patients do these for 7 to 10 days, it starts to recalibrate the nervous system. I'm aware that I'm running out of time, but can I just say, I worked with somebody a couple of months ago, and he was an ex-elite athlete. He's now a management consultant. And when his company referred him to me, he was in a state of desperation. He was so bad. And he said he didn't share this with his HR department, but he shared it with me that he'd been experiencing suicidal ideation. In other words, he'd been thinking about suicide. He was feeling so desperate, so desperate. I didn't really know how I was going to work with this guy. I thought, this guy's in such a bad way. So I said to him, listen, I'm going to share with you 5 things, because he said, please, please, please help me. So I said, I'll share 5 things that you can do, but I also want you to keep in touch with me and let me know how you're feeling tomorrow. And if we need to, I'm going to refer you. We might need to have a medical intervention, because I was worried about him. And he went away and he did the 5 non-negotiables. Less than 24 hours later, he emailed me saying, I cannot believe how different I'm feeling. And this was, our session was in the morning, but he didn't have any more caffeine in the day. He ate more, he hydrated, he stopped looking at his phone constantly, and he went to bed earlier and he read a book. And he did a meditation that I shared with him as well around gratitude. So sometimes small things can make a big difference. Now, I also work more deeply with people. I share with them meditations. We deal with trauma. We talk about herbal supplements. We talk about getting out into nature. We talk about the power of compassion to heal the heart so that your heart rate variability, there's all sorts of things I share with my clients. But I think let's stop for now. That's the tip of the iceberg. I'd love to now hand over to you again, Tiina, so you can get back onto your presentation. But I'm hoping that you all have loads of questions for me as well.
Yeah, thank you, Nerina. Really good summaries. And I certainly subscribe to the same idea that we build good sleep during the day, that it's for most people, it's not enough to start thinking about sleep when you put your head on the pillow, but instead you need to focus on that already during the day with different kind of choices. I guess the one thing that I'm really interested in asking about is that I know that good quality sleep, there is many different ways to define that. There is that parasympathetic dominance, like you mentioned, and I'll be sharing some examples with data from that in just a few minutes. But then there is that you don't wake up that many times, and that you stay asleep most of the time when you're sleeping. And one of the definitions is by National Sleep Foundation is that you should not wake up more than once per night for more than 5 minutes at a time. That's a definition of a good quality sleep, and you have a sleep problem if you don't do that. And I guess I'm often asked about this by clients, that is it normal to wake up several times during the sleep? And for example, myself personally, I never only wake up once per night. I do wake up several times throughout the night. Sometimes I try not to look at the clock, so I don't know if it's for 2 minutes or 4 minutes or maybe 6 minutes. So maybe I crossed that 5-minute barrier. But I guess I'm sort of curious that what's your take on that? Is there sort of one good kind of sleep, or what's normal versus should we accept that there is many kinds of good sleep?
So first of all, I think that definition, I don't find it helpful, because it immediately starts to create more anxiety around I shouldn't be waking up during the night. And it also creates this feeling of maybe I should be measuring how long I've been awake. And there's so many things about sleep that we don't realize, such as, if we didn't wake up during the night, on average, human beings can wake between 10 to 15 times a night, but we don't come into full beta wave consciousness. So we cycle, we sleep at night, we go from beta, alpha, theta, delta, but we often cycle through full wakefulness, and then we come down, but we come into semi-conscious state and we don't remember that we've woken up, and that is normal. If we didn't have that, we would probably be extinct as a species. So first of all, it's normal to wake up during the night, and that's one of the first things I try to dispel the worry about that with my clients. Yeah. Second thing is, listen to your body. And while it's great to have measurement, it's fantastic to have measurement, I also think, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel? And how do you feel as you go through your day? And then there are times when we sleep incredibly well, but we wake up feeling more tired. And then there are times when we don't sleep particularly well, and we also do we feel great. And when I work with elite athletes, many of them don't sleep that well the night before a big event. Yeah. And when I used to run marathons, I often didn't sleep very well the night before, but I would still get my PB. So it's very complex, but I think a good measure is, over a period of time, how are you feeling? And the easiest one is, most of us know when we've had a really good night's sleep and we wake up feeling really happy and we're smiling with our loved ones. That's a good sign, but it's not that straightforward.
I mean, I'm really on the same page with that. That I think people get more stressed about trying to fill some kind of criteria and thinking how many minutes of REM sleep or deep sleep did their wearable tell that they had. So it is definitely a trap. And even if I represent a tech company, I do think data can really bring us some valuable insights, and checking in every once in a while is super valuable. But if you become sort of a slave to the data, then you forget to listen how I'm feeling. I guess one comment on that, how you wake up feeling in the morning, and I think a couple of people in the chat also said that I don't think I've ever felt woken up feeling really great. That I've used my husband as an example in several lectures before, that I've been with him for a long time, and he sleeps well by all measurement standards, and he feels very energized and good most of the day, but he feels like crap the first 30 minutes of the day, almost always. And he's sort of a non-person that you don't even want to be anywhere too close to him during that time. And I've had clients to say the same. And I do think that's one good criteria. But if you happen to be a person who kind of maybe wakes up in the middle of a deep sleep, so then you can expand it to see how you're feeling overall during the day.
Yeah. And I think some of us are owls. If you look at the sleep chronotypes, some of us are owls and some of us are larks. And I've always been irritating in the mornings. Mostly, I tend to have quite a lot of energy in the mornings. But I also see clients who, sleep is only one way of getting energy. We have our exercise, our nutrition, whether we're well hydrated, whether we're breathing properly, our posture. Then we have our the things that we're doing emotionally, whether we have enough support in life, whether we have good relationships. Then we have, are we using the mind, mentally? Do we have enough to switch our mind on? And spiritually, are we inspired by life? Are we passionate about life? So, it doesn't matter how good your sleep is. If you hate your relationships and you hate the work that you're doing, and you don't exercise and you're eating crappy food and drinking 15 cups of coffee a day, then, well, actually, you probably wouldn't be sleeping well. But, we have to look at life holistically, I think. One other quick thing is that sometimes people wake up in an energy slump. because they have a metabolic slump and because they're not eating properly, which is why one of the things I do is get people to start eating, even if it's something small, to break them out of the slump. And then they often find they have more energy in the mornings.
Yeah, true that. And I'm totally with you on the caffeine also, that not everyone is sensitive to caffeine. So there are people who can have a cup of coffee in the evening and it doesn't have any effect on their sleep. But if you're not sure and you struggle with sleep, I think cutting off caffeine the second half of the day, it definitely makes sense. I've certainly done that. I'm not 100% sure how much it helps me, but I feel like I'm taking the sensible steps to try to optimize my chances of that good sleep as often as possible.
Mm.
I'll share my screen now and we can take a look at a little bit of data. So I know that we have quite a few people online that are familiar with Firstbeat, but we also have new people. So just a quick little look at what I mean when I talk about Firstbeat measurements and the data that I'll be sharing. So basically, it's a heart rate variability based measurement. We use a device, typically something like this, a bodyguard device that detects every heartbeat very, very accurately. And then we analyze the time between heartbeats. So we get good quality heart rate variability data from 24/7, so from all day and all night. And the idea is that this kind of data visualizes stress and recovery in order for sort of to support better physical and mental well-being. And we get insights about stress management, the balance between stress and recovery, and then also exercise is a key part of that. And this is just an example of our Firstbeat Life app, that what it looks like. This is a 1 day of sleep. You get an index from your sleep, and here is 2 examples of what it might look like. And this title here comes back to what you mentioned and what I mentioned before, that good sleep is built with choices throughout the day. So it's not just what happens during the night, but how we build that during the day. So here is 2 different 24-hour graphs from a Firstbeat Life measurement. The red color is that sympathetic dominance, what Nerina was referring to, the fight or flight mode, which in this context, it means good and bad things, so positive and negative stress. So I'm not worried when I see the red color. It's a completely normal part of life. But when it starts to dominate, like the top example shows, sort of all day at work, after work, there's no break from that, no exercise, which is the blue color, and no real recovery moments at any point. There is stressful meetings, there is lunch while working or working while having lunch, driving, a little bit of alcohol in the evening, and this person is spending about half of their sleep period in that kind of sympathetic dominant state. The green color means that parasympathetic dominance, or the rest and recovery system, where heart rate slows down and heart rate variability increases. That's what we would like to see during the sleep time. But in this case, the sleep score, which is this number here, that's a combination of sleep duration and the quality of sleep. And in his case, the duration is good, so they're getting still okay points. But when compared to the example at the bottom, where the person has sort of structured their day in quite a different way, they also have a stressful, busy work day, looks like some fairly high red stress peaks here during the workday, but then they've sort of offset that by going and doing their exercise right after work, already early in the day. And then they've done a little bit more work here. So they've broken up their workday into 2 segments like this, and a second part of work here from 3 to 4, which is causing a little bit of stress or concentration, focus, whatever you would call that. Then a little bit of light physical activity in the evening, maybe some house chores, or like in this case, looks like yard work. So some lighter physical activity towards the evening. But then they've done some of those conscious strategies that Nerina mentioned. So they're trying to really start preparing their body for that sleep period. A relaxation moment, reading before bed, it helps the heart slow down and kind of prepares our body and our mind for sleep. And they've had a really good sleep. Even if their sleep is actually a little bit shorter than the example on the top, still they get excellent points from that, 7 hours and 15 minutes, but pretty much all in the parasympathetic dominance. So good example of how you can structure even a busy day in a sensible way so that it allows you to get that good sleep. Couple examples before we look at Nerina's result. The exercise part I wanted to highlight, because here you can see the exercise that the person had. And in general, we find that when you exercise and when you take care of your fitness, it definitely supports good recovery and your ability to sleep well. But if you do hard exercise, especially close to bedtime, that really increases your heart rate high, your activation level really high. So then it can leave you in that sympathetically dominant active state during sleep. it's not a problem as an individual event. Many of us sometimes have an evening exercise, that maybe some group exercise, or we like to go and in a running group in the evening, or sometimes we don't have a chance to exercise except late in the night. But as long as we don't do it on too many nights a week, and the higher the intensity it is, the bigger the effect that it will have on sleep. So if you're one of the people who is really struggling with getting good sleep, then cutting down on the intensity of exercise is a very concrete, practical thing you can do to try to help you go to sleep. And then when you get that sleep rhythm better, you can start ramping up your exercise again. Alcohol is another thing that was mentioned before, and I know many of you have seen this picture, but I'll show it one more time, because our database shows a really, really strong trend that the more units of alcohol you consume in the evening, the bigger the negative effect on recovery is. So if you look at this picture here, on the y-axis, you can see the recovery minutes during sleep, and then x-axis shows the units of alcohol. And as you can see, for all age groups, men and women, the line fairly steeply starts going down, meaning that the more you drink, the less of that good quality recovery you are getting during the sleep time. It keeps the sympathetic nervous system active and clearly sort of prevents us to get that optimal quality of recovery. So unfortunately, not a good sleep strategy for sure. But yeah, then let's take a look at Nerina's own experience. These are two of her 24-hour graphs, and we've discussed through that a couple of months ago, and we looked at it again last week just to refresh ourselves. But these are two of her complete days, and maybe you can sort of highlight a few things from there. What jumped out at you, and what were the kind of insights that you got out of this data?
Well, for me, Tiina, it was extremely reassuring, because I did my analysis, my measurements during a really stressful time in my life. My daughter was extremely ill, and my mother, who lives in South America, thousands of miles away, was also in intensive care. And I had a puppy as well. So my puppy woke me up during the night as well. And I know that I kind of signed up to do my 3 days of measurement, and I was really worried, because I was thinking, God, here we go as a sleep expert, and it's going to, this is my credibility. But actually, I was really reassured to see how good my recovery was. It was extremely reassuring, and I've taken a lot of reassurance moving forward, because I now know that the things that I do to look after myself, and given that I'm someone who once had extreme sleep problems, the choices that I'm making, the things that I do to look after myself, are obviously standing me in good stead.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very good result. That sleep score that I showed earlier, that was 45 or 70 for those two people. So for you, it was about 80 out of 100 points for both of the nights. So good duration. And even if there is a few of the little red spikes during night, it could be when the puppy woke you up, or could be just a sleep stage, but that's pretty normal. But clearly the big picture is very good. And this was interesting that on the second night, this around 8 o'clock here, all of this green, you'd think that you were meditating or deep breathing or something like that, but actually this was when you were doing a Zoom lecture. So that shows that you were maybe in the zone doing something that you really enjoyed, or how did you interpret that yourself?
Yeah, well, I work because I'm not in my 30s or 40s anymore, and my work takes a lot of energy. So yesterday I was doing 4 hours of filming, and so I'm doing this. And next week I have a lot of webinars as well. So I found as I've got older, I've really got to work at being as peaceful and as calm as possible while I'm presenting, so that I'm not drained afterwards. So I have the good energy to do the things that I love doing. I love doing this sort of stuff, but I also love walking my dog, going out on my bike, hopefully getting back to climbing when we're allowed to do that again. So I love the other parts of my life, and spending time with my family and friends when I can. So I don't want to just live for the evenings, or live for the weekends, or live for my holidays. I want to enjoy all of it, So I look after myself, so I have the energy and the resilience to do this kind of work, which means not having alcohol the night before a presentation, getting up early to meditate. I practice TM, take my dog for a long walk this morning, have a really substantial breakfast before this. with eggs and avocado. So I've got a lot of energy in my system. And I had a cold shower as well, because I haven't been down to the river. I was feeling a bit tired mid-morning, unusually tired. So I just decided I'm going to have a cold shower. And that really increased my energy as well. And it helps to switch on the parasympathetic. So that helps.
Yeah, the cold shower or the dip in the ice, it in the moment, it clearly causes a stress reaction for a little while, but then with slight delay, it tends to really kick in the parasympathetic activation. And we often see that, for example, if you had done it here, that then you start after the break, you start seeing green because you are able to, your heart rate slows down and you are able to switch off.
Yeah.
But really good result. And also shown it was a three-day measurement. So the overall body resources graph, which looks at the balance between stress and recovery. And the idea being that if this black line here, if it keeps dipping down, then you're sort of consuming your resources and you're emptying out your body's battery. But in your case, there was a nice balance. You were getting a good bit of recovery during the daytime with different kinds of things, with some of your conscious strategies, but also as part of your meaningful work. But then obviously the stress, the red color, it's completely normal to have it there too. So we by no means need to eliminate that. I'll share one of my own examples and then we can take some questions after that. So just to make sure that people don't feel like that we are both superhuman who go to dip in the ice and have brilliant sleep all the time. So as many of you might know, I've written about it in my blog. So I'm not a great sleeper and the littlest things can offset my sleep. And sometimes even if I don't know what I did or what it was, sometimes my sleep still is not very good, whether I'm measuring it or sometimes by subjective feeling. But I really do believe that if I systematically try to do the right things, then the chances of getting that good sleep definitely get better. And for example, following a systematic routine, trying to go to bed about the same time every night and wake up about the same time, and eliminating caffeine, minimizing alcohol, those clearly have helped me quite a lot. But this is one example from last week. I ended up exercising a bit more than normal. I actually came to the office and I walked to the office here in the morning and then I walked back in the afternoon. It was about 45 minutes each direction. It's normally not a big deal, but it was a cold and very snowy day, so it was kind of heavy slugging through the snow. And then it was sort of a stressful week anyway. I had really a lot going on personally and professionally and a lot of things in my mind. And here in the evening, I simply just wasn't able to switch off. I wasn't doing anything stressful here in the hours before bedtime. I was actually trying to relax and recover, but for whatever reason, maybe the physical exertion of that day was just a little bit too much for that mindset that I had at that time. And really, I just wasn't able to switch off before sleep. And it took me 2 or 3 hours before I started to see the recovery. So there is no magic solution to that good sleep, but I do think following the good principles, it will help us in the long run for sure. Okay, but I think we'll end with this. I'll say thank you from our part, and I'll leave this slide here because this has our contact information at Firstbeat, and it also has Nerina's contact information here. So if you want to contact her or have some questions, want to read a little bit more about her thinking on her blog, so here are the good links for that. But let's see if we have any questions. I haven't had a chance to look through the chat.
Yeah, there've been some really good questions, Tiina. Some really good questions.
So if you see something there, Nerina, that you want to answer, just feel free to pick it out yourself, and I'll start browsing through as well.
Yes, perhaps you can, because we've got a brilliant question on menopause. We've got something about struggling to sleep after exercise. We've got questions on napping, so I'd really love to get to this, to all of these questions.
Let's get at least the napping and the menopause answered, because I think those questions, I also got them ahead of time.
Yeah, and there was also somebody who did ask a question right at the beginning about intermittent fasting, so if I could quickly answer that one as well.
Sure, start with that.
So the intermittent fasting, if you're waking up feeling very peaceful and calm and your nervous system is in a very balanced state, then intermittent fasting can be a great thing. And I certainly do this when I'm on retreat myself. I fast for 5 hours before I eat, but then I'm meditating, I'm doing yoga, I'm walking in the mountains, I'm very peaceful. When I'm back in this world, working at this pace, I don't skip my breakfast. I know that I really need to prime my nervous system because of my history and my health history. I know that I have a tendency to go into my sympathetic nervous system quite quickly. So I eat breakfast, and even if it's to start with something really small. So listen to your body, and if you're feeling anxious and stressed, eat breakfast. Shall we take another question, Tiina?
Yeah, I'll say my thoughts on napping, and then you can add to it if you have anything else. So because napping, it's quite often asked, and I think that napping, if it's short, so-called power nap, so 15, 20 minutes, maybe 25 at the very, very most sleep experts would subscribe that that's fine, because then it doesn't really cut into your actual night sleep. That if you are sort of a normal daytime person who is working a day shift, so you're not dealing with shift work or something like that, the idea is to get the majority of your sleep during the night time, but a nap can support that, particularly if you have a very stressful or hectic job and you feel like you need that energizing break. But I definitely keep it very short. Set an alarm to make sure that you don't end up sleeping an hour and a half, because then you start cutting into your sleep period. Shift work is different. Maybe we can talk about that some other time, but clearly people who are working shifts, they might not get that full duration of sleep at night, and sometimes they can benefit from a longer nap as well.
Yeah, I would agree, Tiina, and I would just say ideally power napping at some point between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, but no later than that, because it can really affect your sleep.
Yeah, I before we go into the menopause, I'll have to answer this. I really, even in our measurements, this question that if you have to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I think for a lot of people that's super typical, and we do need to hydrate well, and so it's very normal to have to get up. And even in our measurements, most of the time the green color doesn't even switch to red during that few minutes of break. It's just all you do, you go to the bathroom and you come back, and within a few minutes you can be asleep. So I wouldn't worry about that. But of course, if you have to go 3 times a night, then maybe you're over drinking in the evening a little bit. But a trip to the bathroom, I don't think it has any significant effect on your sleep quality.
Absolutely. And I would just reiterate the point about do not check the time when you get up to go to the loo. Don't look at your phone, have your phone in another room, and just follow your breathing to bring you back to sleep. You know.
Let's say a few words about menopause. There was just a couple of people have said, can you please mention menopause today? Yeah. They're doing the right things, but it's not causing enough recovery in sleep. And you and I haven't really actually talked about that, but we have lots of experience from data. But you can, why don't you start, and I'll add to that if something comes to mind. I can put my own slide back up, just as an example that I also have those kind of symptoms myself, and that's one explanation for this sleep. It could be sometimes if the hormones are really going at night, it definitely can play havoc with our nervous system as well.
So I'm also going through my menopause at the moment as well, but I think the menopause is the time where you deeper self-care, you know, really looking at rest and recovery during the day, because the autonomic nervous system can get really out of kilter. So, you know, supporting yourself as best as you can by doing, I call it intentional rest, every hour and a half or so during the day, doing something restful. I've noticed that my exercise intensity, I used to do marathons and triathlons, I don't do that anymore. So bringing the intensity of exercise down, being kinder to myself as well. So working with your psychology. I mean, I'm a real perfectionist. I've had to really ditch that, because every time we say to ourselves, I have to do this, I must do this, I should do this, we're pushing our nervous system into sympathetic mode, you know. So look at things like that. Then look at things like, you know, do you need to support your nervous system with bioidentical hormones? Talk to your doctor, get your hormone profile checked. Look at herbs, things like ashwagandha, herbal supplements. I take Chinese medicine supplements, which I find really, really helpful for me. But for me, my relationship with technology as well, really backing off this, because this overstimulates my nervous system, especially the hour or two before I go to bed. If I'm on my phone constantly before I go to bed or on my devices, I will get hot flushes. I have to say I don't get them now at all, but I've had to really clean up my act with technology. So I think holistic lifestyle is so important.
Yeah, and I'm with you that particularly menopause age women, I think using a wearable to measure your sleep night after night, it really might not be the best thing at all, because you might not get the kind of readings that is expected. It can be distressing when you keep falling way under that. And I think we do have to, in ways, accept that sleep might not be the same as it is at other times of our lives, but by doing the right things, like Nerina said, and particularly paying attention to some recovery during the daytime, it can definitely support that. Well, I think we're out of time. Is there something I mean, we have a lot of questions, so we'll try to pick them out and maybe we'll add them into a blog. We're not going to get into the different wearable products in this one. You can talk to us about those at other times because there is so many different devices out there that it's hard to say exact things about those. The one difference that with the Firstbeat measurements, we try to actually emphasize is that you don't need to measure every night or all of the time. It's great for some people if they want to measure every day, but sometimes just checking in every once in a while and getting some data, getting a baseline where you are at and finding out what your challenge areas are, and then focusing on improving that instead of getting, I mean, just like the phone, the wearable can be just as addicting if you're constantly looking to see what it says. So that might be something for some people to consider. Anything else? I think that might be it, and we'll follow up on some of the other questions. We'll definitely pick them out. It's great to see many questions, and we had well over 100 people online, so that was really, really nice. And for my part, I'd really like to thank everyone for joining us today, and special thanks to Nerina for joining us. Really, really good to hear your take on that. And I'll be writing a blog in a couple of weeks because it's coming to be National Sleep Day, and I'll include some of the insights from this talk in that as well. So stay tuned, and we'll definitely keep talking about that. And thank you, everyone. Have a really great day. Sleep well tomorrow night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Nerina.